Evening, everybody. We will be starting exactly at 5 p.m. Thanks for your patience. I hope I'm audible and my video is clear. If it is so, please put a thumbs up, digital thumbs up, and we would love to move forward. All right, great. I welcome each one of you to the very special session on coping with COVID anxiety and grief by Dr. Manan Gupta. I thank and welcome each one of you here. Briefly telling you about NGO Sarthi. Sarthi is a registered non-governmental organization founded in 1992. Female feticide, climate change, and empowerment through education further remain its core focus areas. Our vision is to empower, educate, and aware masses regarding social challenges to make a more just and self-reliant society. All right, I think it's absolutely the right time to introduce the speaker, the expert of the day, Dr. Manan Gupta, who has joined us. It's my honor to introduce him. And please wait because his introduction might take some time because we have highly accomplished person here. Dr. Manan Gupta is a board certified consultant, neuropsychiatrist, and psychotherapist. He graduated medical school from the Himalayan Institute of Medical Sciences, India. He completed his general psychiatry residency MD training at the University of Texas Health Sciences Center at San Antonio, Texas, USA. He has also completed super specialty training in geriatric psychiatry from the Yale University School of Medicine, USA. He is a diplomat of American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology. Well, it's worth mentioning that he has won numerous international awards, including Research Resident of the Year and Most Outstanding Psychotherapy Resident Award, and the prestigious American Association for Geriatric Psychiatry Honors Scholarship. Further telling him about something personal about him, well, he's an ardent reader, a very seasoned personality, and I'm sure you'll explore that through his wonderful session today. He has vast knowledge and exposure. He is really passionate about psychotherapy and enjoys the process and loves doing what he does. And I must mention that he has been relentlessly working towards awareness and promotion of mental well-being through his webinars with school students, youth, organizations, and even with Haryana Police. I think this introduction is not enough because we will get to know more about him as we go ahead with the session. So I think it's right time to begin the session, but I would like to begin the session by asking Dr. Manan, how are you doing? And I would also like to know each participant here, how are you doing? What is the current state of your mood? Please write down in the chat box, one word, one line, one paragraph. How are you doing? How are you doing, Dr. Manan?
Thank you so much, Ananya. Can you guys hear me?
Perfect. Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. It's an honor to be part of this awesome initiative that you guys have it on. I really thank NGO Sarthi and the entire team for having me on and giving me an opportunity to address a lot of our questions that we are battling these days. Currently, I may be slightly anxious, but not too anxious, talks are slightly harder, but I'm getting better. The more I do them, I get better. So that's my state of mind. Let's see what people's reactions have been, if anybody have shared.
Yeah, great.
Oh, yeah, great. Yeah.
I agree with you. In fact, I'm also a bit nervous. I hope I do well with the session, but it's great to have active participants here. It's all right if you're feeling bored, if you're feeling anxious, nervous, or even had a bad and a dull day. It's all right if you want to share that, but it's great to have your participation. I think we must move forward with it, and please keep writing in the chat box your queries, your questions, how you're feeling. You could also react through thumbs up and digital emojis. Please feel free to do that. but please make sure that you keep yourself muted during the entire session. Moving further, we would have a very informal conversation with you, Dr. Manan, about some aspects we have not talked about till now. And to be honest, I think this would be the feeling shared by everybody that we have come along a long journey. Everyone had their set of struggles, challenges during the pandemic. And two terms that I would like to attach with the pandemic journey would be experimentation and roller coaster. I say this because none of us knew how everything would be. We didn't know what struggles we would have, what challenges we would have, how we would cope up with them. So I think it's been roller coaster of emotions and challenges. Talking about the pandemic, and since the topic today is about coping with the COVID anxiety, Dr. Manan, could you please enlighten us? What is anxiety in real? Because we often mix feeling anxious, feeling nervous with anxiety. So, what are your thoughts about it?
No, absolutely. And thank you for addressing the elephant. Elephant in the room is we are all living through this unprecedented times. Like you said, I think that should be the title of my next talk: experimentation and roller coasters, right? Roller coasters used to be, anyways, scary for some people, but used to be a thrill for a lot. But unfortunately, the last year and a half has been very, very hard for most of us. Nobody has been unscarred or unscathed from this pandemic, be it health, be it worry about the future, be it navigating relationship issues, be it, taking care of your own health, you know, and addressing all the emotions that come within you when you are going through this, right? When you talk about anxiety, anxiety inherently has been a very normal phenomena for most people. Anxiety is that fear, apprehension that you feel whenever you're going for an interview, right? Whenever you have to prepare for an exam, right? मेरा एग्जाम है कल, मुझे पढ़ाई करनी है, चिंता होती है ना. So that's anxiety in a normal, healthy way. Anxiety makes you more productive, more efficient, helps you prepare better. Anxiety is that feeling when you're about to meet your this random date you met on this media platform, or you're meeting your friends after a long time. Anxiety is when life throws challenges at you and then you are confronted to overcome them. Anxiety is when you're running for your life when a lion is running after you, chasing you, right? Unfortunately we don't have that. I mean, fortunately we don't have that these days. I mean, but that's somewhat of an evolutionary standpoint. But there always comes a time when this feeling becomes more and more nagging, more and more over consuming, you know then this healthy anxiety sometimes becomes too much to bear. In a way, it starts to affect your functioning. But given this COVID anxiety, in my practice at the civil hospital, and also seeing private clients, I see a lot of terminologies being used in terms of, people often say they're feeling anxious when in reality they're feeling a little bit more lonely. uh, I hear people say they're anxious when they're actually feeling somewhat sad. So before I begin, I would like to address the common emotions that most of us have felt in the last maybe year and a half, more so in the last 6 months, especially since April, May, when the real wave hit us, all of us. And before I address all of that, I would like to ask the audience, you know, when I ask these random, events, they just have to put a thumbs up if they know somebody or if they have personally felt like that anytime in the last 6 months. Okay. How many of you have felt somewhat restless, nervous, anxious about your life situation? How many of you have felt somewhat stuck, stuck in your home, stuck with your surroundings? How many of you have been feeling excessively bored? Like there's no enthu in life, there's no motivation to do in life. How many of you have felt sad, helpless, right? How many of you have seen people getting angry or yourself getting angry? You know, how many of you have seen your parents fighting or your caregivers or your loved ones getting into these arguments where they all mean well, but they just don't seem to get along well, right? Extreme cases, some people have also witnessed, domestic violence, right? That has also gone up. How many of us are having relationship issues, right? um, Maybe some people are not speaking to their boyfriends or girlfriends or spouses or parents. They're going through this extreme, periods of avoidance and withdrawal. uh, Living in the same house feels like you're living in a separate isolation chamber sometimes, right? How many of us are grieving, right? Grieving loss of loved ones, grieving loss of, the routine, grieving loss of your own self that you used to have pre-pandemic area. So if you know somebody or if you personally felt like a yes to any of this, you know that all of that comes in this common cluster of emotions that we are all going through collectively, right? uh, 2 years ago, if I met somebody with excessive anxiety or excessive worry about the future, that person would generally stand out from the mass media because, not everybody was feeling that way. But now, people who stand out now are the people who are acting 100% normal. How are you so fit? What is your secret? I want to know all the tips and tricks that, maybe we can learn from you, right? So in terms of collective emotions, right? So there's a lot of things we are seeing in terms of mood, sadness, anger, frustration, in terms of anxiety, fearful, feeling like things are going out of control. We have a hard time handling ourselves, containing our emotion states, right? Some of us are having sleep changes, we're going to bed late, waking up maybe sometimes before time, or feeling excessively tired. We feel maybe out of focus. It's so hard to focus on our online classes, hard to focus on what our parents are expecting on us, hard to focus to study for the exams. We're having memory problems because we're not able to focus well. So, we're having problems remembering what we actually paid attention to, right? I often hear like, dog, I'm having memory problems. Can you please give me a pill to sharpen my memory, right? That's another complaint I hear. Some of us are feeling exhausted, tired, although they're not working out or doing anything intense. They're still feeling tired. Some of these people are actually too much preoccupied with these rumination or excessive worry about these different events in their life that is very, very important, right? So that's, I would say, the normal spectrum is as it relates to anxiety, sadness, frustration, feeling alone, withdrawn, unmotivated, uh, feeling lost and confused. So I would say, and if any of that happens, that generally tends to make you more anxious, right? Because you feel like it's not normal to have this, right? Because you're not hearing a lot of stories of people who are also going through this, right? And that experience can be very isolating. That's what I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I don't have words. I think you captured everything, the feelings that we all are going through. And actually, I have a lot of messages in my direct messages here that people are feeling this. We are going through it. And honestly, we all have different set of struggles. We all have different journeys and different aspects of life that are troubling us, or but I think this is a mixed feeling that we're going through. And also, I would like to have the next question related to this, that I would call this particular, the present time, the semi-pandemic situation. I say this because we have seen the harsh time of second wave, where people were hospital, like they were all in the hospitals, and it was uh, our inboxes were filled with sad news. And that was the peak of the pandemic. We have gone through the first and the second wave, but now some things are opened. We are able to meet our loved ones, maybe. what we are still restricted at our homes because we can't do certain things. So this is a semi-pandemic situation. So what do you think, doctor, that how do we deal with this mixture of emotions as you talked about? So how do we cope up with the mixture of emotions, the struggles and the challenges that we're having during the pandemic?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I guess we're all figuring it out together, right? The more
Exactly.
we experiment, the better awareness we have. I think my number one tip or suggestion, if you will, would be, you know, just maybe sit with yourself once, you know, do nothing and try to see what is it that you're feeling, right? There's a lot of talk these days about emotional intelligence, right? And the core virtue of emotional intelligence is to be able to acknowledge and name your emotion correctly, right? And once you do that, the next step, very profound step, is to talk it out, right? We know from so much research and from our work experience that when we let it out, it actually eases that burden that we are harboring inside. We are bottled up, right? But the problem sometimes is we don't feel safe enough to talk, right? We fear that if we share this, we would confront our vulnerability. Maybe our weaknesses will be revealed, right? And that can be very daunting. So, I mean, I can only tell you one thing, letting it out, asking for help is actually a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness. The more you do that, the more you let it out, it eases that distress, that burden that you feel. And it actually normalizes a similar emotion or a different one for so many other people, right? Especially, it's more true now than ever, right? Like you said, all of us are going through this together. But why does it feel so isolating, right? Why does it feel that my struggles are my own? Every time I pull up my Instagram or Facebook, why do I keep seeing all these awesomely awesome things my buddies and my role models are doing? Why can't I be that way? Right? And that experience itself is very isolating, right? A lot of us are not talking about all of us, are going through. So my very basic suggestion is to talk it out, sit with yourself. I have patients who come to me asking to develop a routine, you know, but when I do psychotherapy with them, it turns out that they're still grieving the loss of this boyfriend or this girlfriend that they had 6 months ago, but they're just too embarrassed or ashamed to talk about it for whatever reason. And sometimes things get displaced, you know something else is going on, but it presents itself as a pressure to do this one thing, and that manifests as like, I'm not motivated enough. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Why can't I just put on this happy face and go on with my life, right? I have another patient who you know uh, comes feeling very anxious, wants to score really well in her class, but then she finds herself crying a lot. With more work we did, it turns out her parents fight a lot at home. It really, really bothers her. And she takes it personally that maybe she's the one to blame for their fights. So when you talk to her, it turns out, that is the excessive worry that's, affecting her. So I guess my point here is when you talk it out, you start to have a little bit more clarity about what's going on. And you may be blessed and lucky to have supporting friends and family who may provide that confiding role for you. And for some of us who don't have that, there's so much free help out there now, free and professional, and paid help also, right? So there's so many resources out there. I'm so, like, I think in this pandemic, not everything was doom and gloom. I mean, a lot of good also came out of it, and especially the focus has shifted towards mental health, right? A lot of these talks are happening. I've already done like 5 of these, and it just feels so much like better than what it felt 2 years ago. People are coming up. So that would be my basic tip. And then, of course, like all of us know, we have to have a routine, because what this pandemic has deprived us of, our routines, our old life, our sense of identity, our sense of social connectedness, you know. So we do know is like, I often hear a lot about, I'm not productive enough, you know. So I feel like taking care of your mental health is also productivity, right? And when we do that, it actually influences all the other avenues of our lives, right? It's not like if I'm feeling good, only then I can do better. It's also about if I change my lifestyle, although my mind is telling me otherwise, I'm still choosing to pick healthier habits. That instills a lot of self confidence and boosts that motivation. That's what I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I agree upon that. And actually, what you were talking about reminded me of one thing I would like to share with you all.
Mhm.
That during the pandemic, when I was like, the room looks so dull, I want to do something with my room. So I actually pasted a few things, writing on my own, creating them to be colorful. And one of those that I would share, I don't know how many of you understand Hindi. It's a dialogue from a movie that is, "Jitna bhi try karo, life mein kuch na kuch to chutega hi." तो जहाँ है वहीं का मजा लेते हैं. So actually it's just about, how I realized that few things, this is just a small addition to my room. I've not done a great thing, I've not learned a great skill, but still seeing that gives me a smile and actually just reminds me. So here actually I'll come to the next thing that I want to really ask from you, that somewhere all of us, being educated and somewhere little aware, reading content, reading posts, and doing our own researches, we are aware of a lot of things. We know what is going through us and what's going on around us, but we are not able to actually have it in our routine. We know that yoga is a wonderful activity. We know meditation helps us, but we aren't able to actually have it in our routine. So, would you just comment on that? That what is stopping us, or why can't we have that in our routine or lifestyle?
Oh, that's a $1 billion question, right? I mean, a lot of us are figuring it out, and
Right?
we don't have a very, very clear answer yet.
Definitely.
But we do know some patterns we have studied in people who are specifically, trying to change a habit or, you know, include something in their life like working out. Everybody knows if I work out, I'll feel better. My body will be more energetic. I'll sleep better. But again, a lot of us have these random thoughts that they want to do a certain thing. It really becomes about how important is that thing for them, right? Like they're already doing a lot of things, but there's a human theory of longing, right? The grass is greener, right? No matter where you are right now, there's always things to work for, right? There's always things to better yourself, right? So in that loop, if you go back down to the basics, I want to talk about a very common problem. It's called procrastination, right? Have you guys heard the term procrastination? Have you guys, uh, dealt with it?
Yes,
Believe
sir.
me, I deal with it all the time, including today, right? Like simply thinking about, this talk. I mean, I had known about this for a week, but there was a part of me struggling when is the right time to start working on it, right? And in one part of my mind that tells me I want to be the best presenter or making that impact. Other part of me is like, okay, maybe I'm not feeling so great right now. I'll wait for the great moment when I'm actually cheerful and happy to maybe start and fathom myself to do it, right? So it starts this loop where I spend more time thinking about the act or that project. And then over time, I start to feel guilty about this because my worry inside is increasing, right? That I have to do it. I know I have to do it. I signed up for it. But why do I feel guilty? Why am I waiting for this perfect moment, right? And then my mind is so clever sometimes, it gives me excuses. My mood is not right. The weather is too hot. I've not had enough water. I could not sleep well last night. It amazes me how my mind is so trained to feed into my indolence sometimes. I'm not sure how many of you can relate, but I have a few tips for that. Like, for example, this talk or any other project like studying for an exam, you know, think about if you have a task in hand, maybe try to break that task into smaller chunks, right? Like for this talk, there were four tasks if I were to conceptualize it. Research on the material, pick the things that you think are relevant, put them into slides, and then maybe go over it. So if I think about the whole activity, it feels like, oh my God, इसमें तो बहुत time लगेगा. I don't have that time. But if I break it into smaller pieces, I can maybe do that one chapter that I feel is relevant for my exam. I can maybe do that, read this 3 pages of this book I've been meaning to read for a long time, right? Maybe instead of this 1 hour workout, I can trick my brain to just doing 10 minutes of it and then decide if I want to work out for the rest 50 minutes or not, right? So, in this same philosophy, have you heard? I'm sure you guys heard of this book. It's called 5 Second Rule by Mel Robbins. So, she says you can't control how you feel, but you can choose how you act, right? So, it's a very powerful and simple statement. What she means is whenever you have this random impulse to act on something, right? Like I have this thought, I want to work out, right? She says you have about 5 seconds to act on that impulse. If you wait longer than 5 seconds, your brain will try and be very smart to kill that impulse and then kind of feed into that already procrastination loop. So it's a strategy to just kind of begin doing something if you think it's relevant. And then once you are in it, later you have a little bit more control of if you want to keep doing it and how much you want to do it, right? And then another thing I'm hearing a lot these days is like, as schools and colleges are opening up, all these online sessions now, they are changing into exams now, some of them physical exams, so that's becoming like very scary for a lot of people. So have you guys heard about this Pomodoro technique? How to increase efficiency and, how do you minimize your self interruptions? How do you minimize phone use, compulsive, so basically it's an idea that let's say you want to study for 2 hours, right? Maybe you want to study for 6 hours, but like I said, breaking it down to like parts of 2 hours each. But what Pomodoro says is break those 2 hours into further five loops of 25 minutes, right? So let's say you start a timer, you start studying for 25 minutes. So take those 5 minutes break after the 25 minutes, right? And then reset the timer to 25 minutes again, right? So the idea is to have adequate breaks after a decent time of human concentration, right? So there's limits to how much we can focus at a single time. Science would argue it's 45 minutes, but Pomodoro and all the other techniques have tried to make it even more simpler, where you actually end up studying for 50 minutes with a 10-minute break, and over time you feel you are more fresh, you remember more, and you feel more productive. So things like that I feel can go a long way because you know when we talk it out, when we address our emotions, when we have a routine, a lot of people come to me, they want to wake up at 5 o'clock. They have read this book from Robin Sharma, The 5 a.m. Club. They have read this awesome motivational speaker, Jay Shetty, and they're, cribbing themselves. They are maybe not feeling so great about themselves because they're not able to wake up at 5. My question is, what do you want to do when you wake up at 5 o'clock? How is it different when you actually wake up at 7 o'clock, right? And how important is that, right? So again, all these ideas are floating around. Ask yourself, how important is that? If it's a yes, then maybe trick your brain into at least start doing it, and then maybe assessing if that's something you like or not, if you can sustain that, right? But there's always emotions masquerading as different things. So you have to be aware of that. That's what I would say.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, I love the point that you mentioned about having baby steps. We set large goals. We get, that inspiration. We watch a 5-minute video and we're like, we'll do that. We see some inspirational story and we're like, we would do this in our life. But understanding that our life from a lot of people is very different. And I think going with any goal, achieving any goal could be possible when we have those baby steps. I really appreciate that point, sir. Actually, I was also wondering over one thing, that when we say that this person is very caring and this person is very compassionate, we always mean that this person cares for others, this person is nice to others, and hence is called compassionate person. We often forget that there is also something like us, self. um, so could you actually talk about self-compassion? We have heard this term a lot nowadays, self-care. So what exactly is self-care, and how we can have that feeling of self-affirmation? We are missing those times, when we would dress up and go to a party and everybody would compliment you, look great, or you are just doing a good task and you're appreciated by a teacher or a colleague, and they say that you have done a great work. We're not getting those affirmations during these times. So could you guide us that how could we be self-compassionate, and or how we could have those affirmatives in our life?
No, that's a beautiful question, actually. This is something I have been working on personally, and I definitely recommend most of my loved ones and my patients and clients alike. So, in a nutshell, self compassion is something like the way you would treat your friend in a time of crisis or in a trouble. Do you treat yourself just like that as you would a friend, right? My friend just called me. He's struggling with an issue or something, or he needs help. I never tell him, oh my God, why did you call me? Don't ever call me again. You are a bad person. But whenever I am struggling with the same issue, my inner bully always talks a lot. Oh my God, you are not good enough. How could you let this happen to you? Right? We are very self critical, right? So you can think of self compassion as this mindfulness or a meditation practice where whenever the inner bully or the self critical voice acts up, maybe reminding yourself that it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to feel certain things at a certain time, and then that, it's gonna get better. And especially as you said, like we don't have those social structures, physical social structures, at least these days. They may open up soon, but for the meantime, what I have been using myself and recommending other people is this app. Is called the I am app. So what this app does is, like, you can select a lot of self-affirming, quotes and messages that just randomly show up on your phone screen. Because believe it or not, I mean, we spend most of our time on our phones or laptops. I mean, they are a significant part of our lives now. It's so hard to be away from them. So imagine there's a way to convert that phone into this self-affirming voice, right? Using this app. So this morning I woke up, I got a message from this app. I have enough, I do enough, I am enough, right? Uh, and then this other day, after this long day of work, I got this message. I unconditionally accept, love, and appreciate myself and who I am, right? Whenever I'm faced with a hard task, this random, I don't know, maybe I feel this app is reading my mind or something. It tells me, you got this, right? You can do it, right? I am strong, brave, and beautiful. So reminders like that, it's helpful to read them. We generally used to get them from our loved ones, our caregivers, from our teachers, from our friends. You know, all of us want validation of who we are. And there's a big hole, there's a big abyss of that these days. So we have to kind of confront it and recreate it. And all of these things this app is telling you is true. I am good enough, but somehow I have believed parts of me are not good enough, right? And that triggers the anxiety and sadness and isolation. So that's something I do. And also, journaling. I'm sure you guys have heard a lot. Journaling is something, is very therapeutic, powerful. It helps you connect with your current present because a lot of us are worried about the future. But what about this path that we are on right now? What about it, right? It's sort of a grounding activity where you show gratitude towards, you show thankfulness towards the thing you do appreciate in life, right? And when you do it as a habit, it actually makes you feel closer to your life, your own life, makes you feel more in control. And this path that you're on, you have embarked this journey to succeed, actually becomes more meaningful. So that's what I would say.
Wow, I am certainly going to download this app immediately after this meeting, and a lot of people
I
are
am not
interested.
in ties with this app. They have not sponsored this. It's just that a
Great.
patient recommended me and I liked it. Yeah.
Wow. And thanks for recommending. I think these things are very helpful. And maybe through this app, we learn that we need to be nice to ourselves. So actually, you talked about gratitude. Just on a brief note, I would tell the audience my experience with gratitude. There's a lot of things that I've heard about gratitude. Some people in my family were reading books about gratitude. It's a buzzword, trending word, gratitude nowadays. So I thought of why not try doing it. So I set 10 days the last month where I thought that I would be contacting each one in my life, the ones who have given little contribution, massive contribution, or anything in my life. I'll be contacting them through text, through video call, through normal call. And I made sure that I thank for their contribution, being honest, not flattery, not something more than they have done, but just acknowledging and appreciating whatever they have done for me and what role they have in my life. And to be very honest, they were happy, undoubtedly. They thanked me. But the happiness that I felt with myself, I can't explain. I was so happy receiving those messages, seeing those people smile. I was like, I did that. So I believe that practicing gratitude could also be selfish. You could be selfish doing that, for your mental peace, for your
It's a healthy
happiness.
self-regard. Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So please try doing it even after this meeting. Try calling up an old friend or maybe just texting somebody, thank you, you're beautiful. Anything you feel like, try doing that, and I'm sure you'll feel good. And now, doctor, I have a small activity of 5 minutes.
Yep.
And then again, we'll be talking about a lot of things. I have a lot of questions about grief and how to cope up with loss and all. But till now, I think it's the right time to go with the activity. I request everyone to switch on the video if that's comfortable with you. It makes just the session more lively and interactive. And thanks. I could see a lot of you already with videos on. Ms. Dimple, Mr. Mukadder, Jessica, and Sakshi. Thanks a lot. So the basic activity we are going to do, we want you to have your videos on if that's possible for you, if that's convenient. So I'll be talking about a few things. You have to point out in a certain direction. So it could be in your room. And if that's not in your room and you're just able to recall, then don't point out your finger to any direction. If you are able to recall something, just do a thumbs up. If you have that particular thing in your room, you could just point out with your finger. I hope you got it. It's easy and interesting. Right. So the first thing you have to point towards is something that is very important in cold weather. Point in any direction. You know what's that? All right. Second is something around you that's completely useless. Please don't point out towards a person near you. All right. You could show, you could point out, you could just recall. Yeah. I hope everyone found something useless in their room, in their house. Definitely. All right. The next one is something you all. What are you doing? Something you always wanted.
Mask. Mask is completely useless.
All right, that's useless. Okay. Maybe you are at home, that's why it's useless, then great.
No, no, I was not saying that.
Okay.
It was according to the doctor.
Oh, oh, it was
I
for
was being
doctor.
sarcastic. Sorry about that.
All right. Actually, I missed that. Okay. Okay. So the next is something you always wanted and you have it now. Recall, or something you always wanted and you have it now. Try to recall, point out. Mhm. Awesome. And the next one is something you don't really like. A thing that you don't really like. Mhm. A gift that you received that made you smile, that made you excited or happy. Awesome. I was able to see around 7 people because I could see only 7 videos on, so great. But I think all of us did that. The only reason behind doing this point towards activity is just, we are not really mindful of a lot of things around us. When I tried and learned about this activity, I was like, oh, I have this thing in my room. I found this useless because I thought about it that it's useless. So it's just that sometimes we just forget being aware about what's near us, what's around us. So I think that was just a small break from the conversation we were having. And I think it's the right time to get back to the informative conversation that we were having. So I think the topic is going to be a little serious, but we will make sure that you go after this meeting. We end this meeting on a very positive note. So bear with us. This topic is a little serious. Okay. So Dr. Manan, if I recall the last few months, I remember that our timelines and inboxes were, filled with the tide of grief and sufferings. Who would have thought that, condolences, RIP, broken heart emojis would, be the top prompts on our phone keypads, unfortunately so. And all around us was just, the pain and the despair we could hear about. Everyone was so overwhelmed. And I think the term that we use for it is grieving, but often and on we don't understand what grief exactly means. So it would be great if the audience could participate by writing in the chat box, what do you understand by grief or grieving or having lost something, someone. So it would be great if we could start this topic by knowing what people believe that grief is. And then, of course, we would like to hear from doctor that what exactly grief is and how to go about it. Yeah. Yeah, we would love to have your, please don't feel that you have to be correct. It's absolutely all right. If you just have a little clue, if you're wrong. Yeah. Anything that you understand by grief or loss. Mhm. We have mixed responses. Mhm. I think the answers are varying from losing self, a person in life, or some situations, or just some emotions that make us grieve. Yeah. Mhm. What do you have to say, Dr. Manan, about grief?
um, Grief. This is another very relevant yet very challenging topic
Definitely.
because grief means so many things to so many people. That's evident in our chat box also.
Yeah.
That's evident when we ask ourselves also. A lot of us don't even know what that is. We just feel it, right? So biologically or professionally speaking, grief is like a response in face of a loss, right? And that response could be anything, right? Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, she's a psychiatrist from the early 1900s. She came up with this 5 stages of grief, right? I'm sure you guys have heard, right? A lot of people, as our audience said, feel sad, feel angry. A lot of us feel disbelief that maybe this is not happening. Maybe this is a bad dream that we are going through. A lot of us feel like in this bargain mode where we subconsciously pray to God, God, please save my caregiver, save my parent. I promise I will go to temple every day. Or I'll promise I'll plant all these trees. I'll feed all these people. Please, bring my person that I've lost or this thing that I've lost back. Right. And then there's all sorts of emotions about, feeling numb, like you don't even know how to act, you know. So grief is collectively all of those things. Um, do we have about 5 minutes to kind of, I would like to read this post from Muhammad Asim. Um, I think he's really captured, like you said, Nanya, this collective pain all of us are feeling. Do you think it would be okay, or do you think we should focus more on the tips and tricks
I
of
think
the
that's
trade?
perfectly all right. To be honest, the thing I just spoke about, inboxes filled, I actually read his post
Yeah,
recently.
yeah,
And I was like, this is so true. This is so real. And I think
yeah,
everybody would connect with it. So please, doctor, please go with it. Sure.
perfect. Um, so Muhammad Asim is a New Delhi-based journalist. This is his blog on ndtv.com. We can share the link later. Um, so he goes on saying this, actually this came out on May 17th, totally in the speak of this wave that we went through. He says, if the pain is personal and individual, which is so often the case, it can drag us down a solitary hole. But when it becomes shared and collective, pain can lift us out, extracting us from our solitude into the company of those who are suffering as well. He writes, for days I nursed my pain deep inside me, deep within me. Being the elder son who had to look after the ill parents, mourning the loss of their loved son in law to COVID, I did not have the time and space to process my emotions. I had to be strong for my sister and her two teenage children who lost their partner and father in the cruelest fashion. I couldn't cry in front of them, could I? I vented one day finally in a Facebook post. I had to recount each and every horrid detail that I and my sister went through to clear the burden in my heart. That post was me crying out loud. Writing, as they say, is cathartic. Then came a deluge of calls, messages from friends, from the people I know, and also from total strangers. Thousands poured their hearts out. They showed support, they shared my pain. I got some of the most poignant and emotional messages from people that I had lost touch with or haven't met or spoken to in years. I welled up reading some of those. Many shared their own horrid experiences and what they have been going through. I felt their pain. We became one. Our timelines and inboxes are a tide of grief and suffering, right? Like Ananya said, who would have thought that condolences, RIPs would be the top prompts on our phone keypads? All around us is a deluge of pain, desperation. Everyone is overwhelmed. We ought to share it, tell others about ours and listen to theirs. No one will emerge unscarred from this pandemic. Everyone has been hit in some way. My heart cries for kids orphaned in a sudden brutal stroke. A dear friend who is part of a counseling collective was asked to talk to a 5-year-old who lost both of his parents to COVID. The child tells that everyone around is mourning and hasn't had the time to talk to him. But I have lost my parents, no? Just 5. What can anyone tell that boy to make him feel better? I cry with a professor friend whose husband is battling for his life in the ICU. She couldn't properly mourn a friend she just lost. I have to stay strong for my son and husband. She tells me sobbing over the phone. I let her cry for some time. There are a few people in front whom you can cry your heart out. For others who look up to you for strength, you have to put up a brave face. What do you tell a single mother who loses her only son, just 17, to COVID? Will any words ever bring any closure for her? You can only share and feel her pain. A very close relative looks after a special needs child at home while his wife is struggling for life in the ICU. He himself is unwell, but cannot think about his own health. The child asks him, "Is mama gonna be a star?" Thankfully, her mother came back home. On a video call arranged by a good doctor, a young kid sings, "Tera mujhse hai pehle ka nata koi," to his mom, breathing her last. Final goodbyes, no matter how painful, are very important. Can you ever listen to that song again without shedding a tear? A 19-year-old nephew who recently recovered from COVID goes to donate plasma in the middle of the night to a total stranger after an appeal on a social media platform. His mother is scared about him going to the hospital in the middle of the night, but she allows him to do so, staying awake and praying till he returns. They both feel good about helping someone in need. The nephew gets to know the next day that the person did not make it. He is grieving a stranger. Pain binds us all. This bond is the only system that is working today. I haven't had a positive dream in many weeks. I wake up in the middle of the night palpitating, throat drying up, only to realize it was one of those another nightmares of loss, of the desperation of being stuck in a terrible situation. Every sob, every cry, every scream, every share, every blank stare, every helping hand, every fading heartbeat is a monument of a shared grief. We will carry it and mourn it for the rest of the life. Um, Thank you for listening to that. I think Muhammad Asin has very deeply and touchingly tried to capture what a lot of us felt, witnessed in some shape or form. All of us knew someone close or in distant relatives that who may have struggled or lost someone, right? We found ourselves in this awkward moment, confused as to what to do about it. What do you tell this friend of mine who lost his uncle, who lost his parent, right? How do you even, what do you tell yourself when you yourself find yourself in this position where you're confronted with a loss, right? The thing about grief is it's a very individual experience, right? It's always a mix of emotions. It does not follow a set trajectory or a path. It does not always end up in acceptance. It does not always begin with anger, right? But it's very important that we do take care of ourselves, especially when we have a loved one or a close friend who is going through it personally. What do you tell a person who has just lost his family member, right? What's not to say, right? So automatically, someone who is grieving can feel emotions of withdrawal, doesn't feel like talking to anybody. That's okay, right? As a friend, you may feel very awkward and confused as to what to say to bring comfort. And it's a very common thing I hear and see on social media platforms, right? Everybody feels awkward when somebody posts that this person isn't there anymore, right? Everybody writes RIPs, heartfelt condolences, I'm sorry for your loss. But what about close friends whom you're talking to and you feel awkward, like what should I say, right? I wish we had more time to address this, but my only tip about that would be if you know someone who's dealing with that, the very first important thing I think as a friend or as a caregiver you should do is just to be there for them. Just be there. Maybe just do nothing. Be emotionally there. Tell them that, you know how much you love them. You can't imagine what they must be going through, right? Tell them you are there for them if they need you in any way, although that person might not know what they might need from you, you know. Offer to help with some chores, like, with the cremation ceremonies, or, walking their dog, or, ordering food for them, or assisting them in any way if you feel that connection with that person. If you can, you don't have to. A lot of people who are grieving, they really don't know. They are in this um, weird state where they are figuring out. And another thing I commonly see is you have to put up a brave face when you're confronted with grief. That it's not okay to cry. That it's not okay to take some time off to process all of this. That it's not okay to break your routine and take some time off and, process this. My friends, that's what you actually need. It's totally okay to cry. It does not make you weak. It actually helps you process the thing even clearer. You might not be able to name what you're feeling, but your body is showing you responses. Let them out. Do not resist them. If you want your own space, take it. You have that full right to, feel what this relationship, loss of relationship, this person that meant for you, or this old lifestyle, or this old job that you really enjoyed is no longer there, right? Practice self compassion. It's okay to feel this, however much longer it takes. That person may be gone, but the relationship is not over, right? A lot of us, you know, really feel that, please come back. I'm gonna do anything to. But then again, for some of us, when we see people lose people, some of us get worried about their own mortality, and that's okay too, because we do know that all of us, you know, um, are not immune to that process. But whatever time we have, let's make the best out of it. Let's be there for each other. Let's practice compassion. Let's practice some patience. Let's try to understand each other. Let's try to be emotionally and physically there for each other in whatever shape and form they might need us, right? One of the professors in psychiatry, when his father died, his last words were, "We are all angels with one broken wing, but we all can fly if we hold each other." That's a very powerful and simple statement, right? We are all in this together. Our circumstances may be somewhat unique to us, but we are all similar in the way we are feeling it, right? So be mindful of your needs and communicate them effectively, ease the burden. Don't rush the process of what you are confronted with, right? Uh, yeah, that's what I would want to say. Sorry if this was little too much, but
No,
yeah,
not
I
at
thought it
all.
was relevant.
Yeah, that was totally relevant. And I think we were here to hear this thing that, we don't often understand. We are not told how to react to if someone is grieving, how to be with them. We want to be nice to some people, but we often use wrong phrases. We tell people, be strong, but that doesn't mean anything. How can a person be strong when the person has lost someone? Or maybe some phrases like, it happened with me as well. So telling your own sad story to someone who is already grieving might not be really appreciated by this that the person, or maybe just generalizing the person's pain, that it's all right, a lot of people are having it. So we often misuse the phrases, but I actually got to learn a lot, and I'm sure the audience got to learn a lot from your session. And we're coming towards the end. As I promised the audience to end this session on a positive note, could we get a few tips or suggestions from you, Dr. Manan, that how important it is to seek out help, if you want to talk about that, or maybe a few tips just to have a happy and healthy lifestyle, just something you want to share quickly, anything?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing I would say is, you know, do things, spend some time in your 24 hours of the day with things that you actually enjoy, right? What COVID has taught us, the very basic lesson is life is very frugal, right? Try to be more in the present and try to spend more time with the things that bring you personally meaning and value, right? Identify your own value system, right? Help others or whatever your think is. Uh, some people really enjoy spending time with family and friends and vacations and, dancing for some and singing for some and, you know, maybe just 5 or 10 minutes a day. That can instill such a powerful feeling of confidence that it really prepares you well for what's to come in life, right? And I think you guys are all very smart and just be aware of your needs, practice compassion, talk to people if you feel the need to, and just keep doing your best. You all are awesome. Thank you for
Wow.
being a great audience, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Before we end the session, since we have been talking about self-compassion and being nice to ourselves, one small thing, again, I want you all to have your videos on. Please do it for a minute, and I'm sure I'll not trouble you again. Uh, Please make sure that your video is on if you're comfortable. It doesn't matter what your background is or your hair or anything. So awesome. Thanks a lot for doing it. It's really encouraging. Thanks a lot. All right. So spread your arms, both the sides, if you can. I have a window here. I'm sorry. Spread your arms as much as you can. 180 degree. Make sure your both the arms are 180 degree. Do you do that? 1 second. Let me have all of you. Awesome. I'm having more of you. 180 degree your arms, and then give a tight hug to yourself. And just take a moment to appreciate yourself, cuddle yourself, and tell you're amazing, you're beautiful. It's all right. You did some mistakes. If you failed, there's a lot in life to come. And I just love myself. Try doing it. I do it every morning. Honestly, I do it every morning, and it makes me feel great. So one thing for sure that I've learned today is that everything's going to change. Everything is temporary. So if today we all are having a very tough time, there would be some ray of hope the next day. If not the next day, then somewhere in the future. So let's go ahead with that hope, with that purpose in life. And we all are together in this. So thanks a lot, Dr. Manan, for coming to this session. And we are honored to have you. We all learned a lot today, and I'm getting amazing feedback. Thanks a lot, everybody, for your precious time, for your effort to learn more and to be aware citizens. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Goodbye. See you all. Same link, same time. Take care. Goodbye.